And up next, viewers, we're getting you some more breaking developments with respect to how the President Vladimir Putin has ordered Russian nuclear deterrent forces on alert amid tensions with the West over Ukraine. Now, Rhythm, we have seen how these kind of statements have been made by Russia and the rest of the world as well, including the US, the EU, in fact, all of them threatening with sanctions, and Russia as well had responded with counter sanctions as well.
Breaking news that's coming in, and this is only in tune with what Belarus has done when they've also said that nuclear weapons, if deployed by Poland or Lithuania, they will also use them. Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordering Russian nuclear deterrent forces on alert. This is also coming when earlier we saw he had said that another combat needs to be put into place. Even as on the one side, the delegation has left for Minsk in Belarus for talks with the Ukrainian side, Russian nuclear deterrent forces are on alert, which is an alarming situation that's now being risen. We're also going to try and get in a look at that. Viewers, in just a short while, we're going to try and get Shavan, who's also going to be joining us live from a residential building that has been destroyed. We're also telling you at the same time that President Vladimir Putin not only orders nuclear deterrent forces to be on alert, but he's also said that a special combat needs to be put there in order. In fact, in just a short while, Priyanka, we're going to go across to Shavan.
Well, yes, definitely, Rhythm. The situation clearly escalating where the Russia nuclear deterrent forces on alert has been asked by from Russia, in fact, and tensions with the West over Ukraine also escalating. And of course, this comes in the backdrop of the kind of, we had seen the posturing that had been done by the delegation from Russia who had headed to Belarus and then had claimed that they will be sitting there waiting, and they had been given a timeline to Ukraine to come to the table to carry out talks over the entire Ukrainian crisis. And then, of course, we had gotten the latest that the Ukrainian delegation had been on the way. But the kind of back and forth rhythm that we have seen from the very beginning, the escalation on the ground, and of course on the diplomatic level as well, now that President Vladimir Putin has ordered that the Russian nuclear deterrent forces on alert amid the tensions with the West over Ukraine. Of course, we will have to see how this pans out and whether this talk really proves to be fruitful, Rhythm.
Yes, absolutely. And viewers, this is important because another breaking news that's going to be soon put on air is how these talks are going to be held. And these talks become so critical when Russian nuclear deterrent forces are on alert. At the same time, Alexander Lukashenko has now told Vladimir Zelensky have agreed that the Ukrainian delegation will be meeting with the Russian without any preconditions of the Ukrainian-Belarusian border near the Pripyat River. We've seen that he's taking responsibility that during the journey, negotiations and return of the Ukrainian delegation, planes, helicopters, missiles stationed on Belarusian territory will remain on ground. It is very clear on the one side, the picture that is emerging is the Russian delegation is going to be in talks with the Ukrainian delegation. On the other side, Russian nuclear deterrent forces have been put on alert. Priyanka, the situation is alarming. We're seeing the refugee influxes at the border, but Putin very clearly heightening and escalating the situation.
We have seen how the remains of the Russian convoy, the Russian military equipment, in fact, had also been destroyed. Earlier again, we had seen from across Ukraine, in several pockets of Ukraine, near Kyiv, in Kharkiv as well, we had seen how Russian convoys completely had been destroyed. They had been blown to pieces, even as the air warfare escalates from the Ukrainian side as well, Rhythm, where now the Ukrainian drone earlier we had seen that had completely destroyed a Russian convoy, and now once again we see another visual from Bucha, in fact, right now,
where who's joining us from Kyiv. Shavan, you're standing at a building where we're also right now being told that this was destroyed partly. Shavan, tell us what's happening around you.
ये सामने आपको नजर आ रहा होगा और उसके ठीक सामने ये बिल्डिंग है। मैं कहूँगा शवन आप आइए, आपके पास कुछ जानकारी भी है। अगर मेरी टीम सुन रही होगी तो वो तस्वीर भी मुझे लगता है स्क्रीन पर होगी जब कल धमाका हुआ और आज हमारी टीम यहाँ पर पहुंची है। शवन, कुछ कहना चाह रहे हैं आप?
कि ये तीसरा ऐसा अटैक हो चुका है जो आप देख रहे हैं कि रेजिडेंशियल रिहायशी इलाके में हो चुका है, और साथ ही साथ हर एक ऐसे इलाका है जहां पे ये अटैक हुआ है। और रिपब्लिक टीवी पहला ऐसा एक चैनल है, भारतीय चैनल है और विश्व के चैनल जो आके आपको वो तस्वीरें दिखा रहे हैं जो आप इस वक्त देख सक रहे थे, आके हिट करता है। यूक्रेनियन आर्मी का मानना है कि ये रूस ने चलाया था ये वाले प्रोजेक्टाइल मिसाइल, और दूसरी तरफ से रूस ने अब ये वो कह रहे हैं कि यूक्रेनियन के एयर डिफेंस सिस्टम के मिसाइल आकर यहाँ पे हिट करता है। तो कहीं ना कहीं जिस तरह से दोनों के बीच में लड़ाई जो आप देख रहे हैं, अब शहरों के अंदर पहुँच चुका है। और जब हम लोग इस एरिया पर पहुँच रहे थे, पूरी इलाका को खाली कर दिया गया है। आप देख पा रहे हैं कि आगे भी अगर देखिए,
आगे भी कोशिश करेंगे कि इसकी तीव्रता कितनी खतरनाक है। हमारे लिए चलना मुश्किल हो पा रहा है क्योंकि यहाँ पर सिर्फ और सिर्फ पत्थर ही पत्थर नजर आ रहे हैं। चलना हमारे लिए भी बहुत मुश्किल है। हम थोड़ा सा और आगे जाने की कोशिश करेंगे। शवन, आप देखिए इतना तेज धमाका होता है कि ईंट, पत्थर, सीमेंट सब कुछ यहाँ पर बिखर सा गया है। और ये इलाका भी देखिए आप, ये इलाका जो है ये पूरा मॉल का इलाका है और यहाँ पर भी किस तरीके की तबाही हुई है। यहाँ तक धमाके का असर हमें दिखाई देता है। और जैसा हम कह रहे हैं कि जो निशाना बनाया जा रहा है उसके पीछे एक रणनीति है। जैसे मेरे सहयोगी शवन बता रहे थे कि एक रणनीति के तहत उन इलाकों को निशाना बनाया जा रहा है जो काफ़ी महत्वपूर्ण हैं, जो विशेष हैं यूक्रेन के लिए और ख़ास महत्व रखते हैं। उनको निशाना बनाकर ये बताने की कोशिश की जा रही है रशिया की तरफ से कि हाँ, वो आपके निशाने पर हैं, यानी यूक्रेन को तबाह करने के लिए वो कहीं भी धमाका कर सकते हैं। और जब हम इस इलाके को देखते हैं,
Well, that is our colleague Shravan Sen who is getting us that live report from Kyiv. In fact, those visuals, horrific visuals really, Rhythm, that we can see on our screens for our viewers that we're putting out. A lot of debris that really goes to show the kind of destruction that must have taken place. Shravan, if you can hear me once again, please continue. Please, you were showing us what is happening there.
Priyanka, in fact, we have reached this place called Lobaninsky Avenue. This is on the 6A Lobaninsky Avenue where a projectile missile hit this particular building. What you see right now is the debris of this building. That's on the 16th and the 17th floor is what we are being told, when a projectile missile hit this building around 8 o'clock in the morning. Surprisingly, not many people were living here, but Ukrainian authorities do say that about 2 people have been killed in this projectile missile attack that took place. On the one hand, the Ukrainian authorities are now claiming that this was a Russian projectile missile that has hit this building. Russians on the other side have now put out saying that this was the Ukrainian air defense system that was at work and the missile was fired, leading to this kind of destruction. Of course, this is a scenario of he said, she said, but the fact of the matter is that this is exactly what happens when a war actually reaches a city, an urban area where you're looking at a large-scale destruction right now. Let me just quickly take you a little closer to try and understand the level of destruction that has basically taken place. What you see is that this is primarily a busy business area, including some residential buildings. What you see on the ground floor are eateries, gymnasiums, ATMs, all of that in this particular building. In the above floors where people were living. Look at the condition right now. You look at the condition right now where you see the debris lying all over right now. This is the situation. I'll ask Rawatji also to come in a little closer. Some really heartbreaking images of what you see, books that are lying strewn all over. You're looking at this kind of destruction which has now reached residential areas. While initially, if you remember what the Russians have been saying, that this was a war, a military operation that would be perhaps limited to only the military bases. But what we have seen, this is the fourth day. In fact, this is the fourth site that we have basically come to, starting from the first day itself, where we saw Alexander, the first area, a residential area which came under attack. Then we've been to other areas even yesterday. Just a few meters away from this particular place, there was yet another attack that took place. So simultaneously, while this attack took place, what you see, there were two attacks, one at 8 o'clock in the morning right here in this particular building, and few meters away from here, roughly about 500 meters if I'm not wrong, there was another industrial area which was attacked, from where we had also brought you images yesterday. But clearly what's become very evident right now, Priyanka, is that Russian army certainly targeting these residential areas, and Ukraine has also provided some evidence to back the claim that these attacks that you are seeing right now, they are taking place in residential areas, and this is being carried out by the Russian troops. Time and again we have seen communication essentially coming in from the Ukrainian side that there is enough evidence that they have, that they are willing to share it with the global world, that these atrocities, what they are calling war crimes, that have been committed by none other than the Russian troops. As far as the support that you are seeing right now that Ukraine is receiving from across the globe, you've had multiple countries coming together, an umbrella coalition trying to support Ukraine in their attempt to stop the Russians. But what you're looking at in the meanwhile is large-scale destruction that has taken place. While we speak right now, there were talks of peace talks were supposed to take place in Belarus, which Ukraine has rejected on the grounds that they are willing to talk to them, provided this happens in a different place. But let me come back. Let me describe what we are seeing right now. You're looking at a perfect business area mixed with some residential buildings. What you see straight down here is also some of the most important hospitals or medical centers. What we were told by the Ukrainian authorities is that their analysis shows that this has basically come eastwards. So the projectile missile is basically coming eastwards, hits this particular building on the 16th and the 17th floor, leading to large-scale destruction. And this has also been caught, Priyanka, on security cameras of nearby buildings. The security cameras essentially show the sudden hit that comes in from this projectile missile, leading to the kind of destruction that you are witnessing right now. While it's quite surprising that the casualties aren't that much, perhaps at that point in time, on that particular floor when this hit, there weren't too many people, and somehow the authorities have also managed to ensure that this building essentially does not collapse. Because we did try, Priyanka, a while back to come to this particular area, but we were told not to come in because the authorities were still present. They were still looking at the stability of this particular building, because if you see, this actually hits the beams of, or rather the foundations of the building, and of course it would have destabilized this entire building, and that's the reason why this area was cordoned off for quite some time. But the reason why we decided to actually come here and show it to our viewers is that we've basically made this endeavor, no matter how difficult it has been for us, very, very challenging to reach these sites. But there is an importance attached to these very images that is going to be beamed across the world, that is for the world to really know that it is the civilians, it is the local population of Ukrainians who are basically suffering because of this war that has been waged by Russia. Ukraine, on the other side, time and again has been messaging, saying that this particular war, it's a war that has been chosen by Russia. It is not that something that they have chosen. But for how long will this continue? Because what you're looking at almost on a daily basis, Priyanka, is that we are looking at residential areas that have come under attack. Multiple such locations, starting from, if I can recall for our viewers, we went to Alexandra. That's again a suburban area. 2 days ago, we had seen a completely a residential area, over tens of thousands of people who were living there. And there too, we saw large-scale destruction. There, the casualty numbers were roughly about 11 to 12. Then we also went to another location just yesterday. That was a mix of an industrial plus residential area that came under attack. And we were there. We were there just about an hour after the attack took place. And what we saw is that there too, there's been large-scale destruction even in the residential area. So it's important to point out here is that how things are basically developing with every passing day. Is it just going to worsen given the fact that there has been no breakthrough as far as talks are concerned? Ukraine again has been emphasizing that they're willing to do the peace talk, but not in Belarus, the very place from various missiles have been launched against Ukraine. So that's the condition that has been put by Ukraine. But the fact of the matter is that things are only worsening, especially in the capital city of Kyiv. There have been attacks that have been taking place in various other parts. So a short while ago, we went to a place called Metro Volynsnaka. That particular place, we've seen a large-scale migration now taking place. The United Nations basically estimates that over 150,000 Ukrainians have already left the country. The fact here is that not only people, women, children who are being affected, of course, you also have families who have been completely destroyed. Very heartbreaking images of how elderly people who were living alone, they had to leave, packing their bags, just one bag, and they have left. Several such images have been doing the rounds. In fact, let me just tell you that here too there are a lot of families who were there. So the images that we can see right now, those images that were just taken moments after the attack, we've seen some people going back to their apartments, rummaging through whatever is left, and then perhaps leaving from here. So that's the kind of image that we have seen across this area. Let me ask Rawatji also to show you the entire area. You'll get a sense that this is right in the middle of the city where this attack has actually taken place, and perhaps how unnerving it can get that you have residential areas being completely that has come under attack, and you're looking at perhaps places which would have been normal areas for the Ukrainians to come and go, and perhaps even they haven't thought. Look at this particular image here. This is perhaps a mall, a small mall where you have cafes and also a shopping area. Even lights are still on. So you've had people perhaps who had to leave minutes after this attack took place, and thereafter not in a position to come back and do anything about it. So that's the defining image of a war. But the fact of the matter is that the destruction simply continues. It hasn't stopped. It continues unabated. We have seen air raid alerts taking place in various parts of the city, and that has resulted in people actually taking shelter in places like this. If you take a right side, you would actually look at more like a temporary shelters that have been created in the area so that people can immediately rush when the sirens are basically sounded off. In fact, we as a team, as a crew, we've been subjected to that since late last night, when rather than staying in a hotel, we've had to actually go into bunkers. And not about us, perhaps we are not the ones who are really suffering. It's the people who are suffering here, and it's very difficult to recount what they're going through. We were speaking to people who've come from Kharkiv, or we were talking to them over the phone, and they're saying that now there is nothing left. We don't have water, we don't have food. That's the condition in other far-flung areas from Kyiv, and this is how it is. It is constantly, it's becoming like this. Take a look at this. Images of ambulances on the street, pretty much common right now. That's the image of an ambulance leaving from the area, and this has become even more repetitive, or perhaps I would say very, very common on the streets of Kyiv right now, where we're seeing ambulances, military vehicles, artilleries that's being transported on the roads from one place to the other. So that's the kind of situation that we are looking at. So two places that we have covered so far, and in both the places, let me just tell you, it's becoming even more evident that Kyiv is becoming the nerve center of this battleground.
Shavan, we have been able to see this on the ground vicariously through you and our crew who's been present on the ground, showing us those pictures.
Priyanka, we just heard we just heard a gunshot in this fired in this area. I'm not very sure if the producers have just heard it. It's just behind us. The gun firing that has just taken place while we were coming. There was also quite a lot of places where the barricading has actually taken place. Please do confirm if you've been able to hear the gunshots that have taken place a short while back, just while we were speaking.
Yes, Shavan. We're getting all of those images, all of those audios and videos that you have been bringing to us. I implore you to stay safe, Shavan, with all of our crew there. Shavan Sen getting us a splendid ground report there from Kyiv, where in fact the situation by the moment seems to be escalating.